All right, folks, welcome to another edition of the Kickstart. Glad you're with us on Eclipse Day. That's right, it is Eclipse Day. It is just about time to get started. We'll do a countdown now, and then we will get this show on the road. And welcome to the Kickstart. It is absolutely my honor and my pleasure to be with you today. Hope that you really get something out of the stories we talk about each and every week. I feel like it is certainly my responsibility to share the knowledge that I gain whenever I look around our industry and see some of the things that are going on, because it will help us all to be better at our job. Don't forget, at any point in time that you have any comments or any questions that you would like to pose out to us, then please put that in the comment section and we will get to that. It's very important that we look at those things, because hey, a lot of this is my opinion on these. We're going to talk about stories, but I've had a lot of years in this industry, and if you don't like my opinion, go ahead and put that in there too. That's okay. I'd like to hear your opinion on something, especially if it is in an opposing view to mine, because it's always interesting to hear what other folks have to say as well. All right, so don't forget you can put that out there. Well, as I mentioned earlier, Happy Eclipse Day. That's right, it is Happy Eclipse Day. Most all of the United States will be able to have some view of the eclipse. We happen to be in the path of totality. The terms that they come up with are just so awesome, right? We are located in San Antonio, Texas, and so there's about an extra million people around our area right now hoping to catch a view of that total eclipse. So we are, there's a lot of traffic, a lot of stuff going on. My wife was mentioning she went to one of her favorite little restaurants to pick up a to-go order, and it was absolutely packed, and they had never seen the place quite as full as it was. But that's interesting what's going on in lots of places across the United States where the eclipse is going to be in the path of totality. We'll see. Here in our area, we have potential cloud cover today, so we'll see if we actually get to see the eclipse or not, but we are certainly preparing for it. Now, I bring this up because it actually is a healthcare story as well. The eclipse, while many people are really excited about it, hospitals, maybe not so much. Hospitals are really bracing for the unexpected today. This is typically the numbers show that there's going to be increase in automobile accidents today, that there is a potential for some mass casualty events. These can occur because when people are gathered in an area and accidents can occur. There's distraction. People, obviously, if everyone's looking up in the sky, there are things that can happen there. The interesting part of this, I believe, is that they've been preparing for it for a long time. Makes sense. This is a big event. Some of the hospitals actually that are along that path of totality, which goes all the way from Texas to Maine, by the way, they have spent more than a year preparing. They've done emergency drills. They've been coordinating with local officials. They've really been getting their poop in a group, as it were, right? They've been making sure that they're ready to go for this particular event. There is a lot of excitement across the country. Hospitals, kind of a little bit on edge right now because they don't know exactly what to expect, especially some of the rural areas. Some of the rural hospitals, they may not be staffed properly. They may not be ready for the number of people that are in their area, and it could cause some issues. So just stay aware of everything that's going on out there. And, if you know folks at the hospitals in your area, especially if it's a rural area, be keeping them in mind today, keeping them in your prayers, because there is a potential that there could be some fallout from that. Now, one of the things I'd be remiss to not point this out, also kind of on the health side, a very important tip is only look at the eclipse, of course, through the glasses that have that approved solar filter. And even if you're wearing those glasses, this is kind of interesting, right? Even if you're wearing those glasses, you still don't want to look at the eclipse through a camera or a telescope lens, even with those glasses on. Those particular type of instruments can actually magnify the sun's rays and still hurt your eyes because of that magnification. So keep that in mind for Eclipse Day today. All right, got to have a quick drink of coffee. Hope everyone, once again, is having a really good Monday. All right, so now we're going to jump back into GLP-1. Man, it seems like we talk about this every single week because something is going on with those. But I'll tell you what, it's the numbers are staggering. How much the increase that Medicare has paid for these. I believe that we're going to see these Medicare medications come up for some of the negotiations that Medicare is doing now because of these numbers right here. In 2018, the spend for Medicare on GLP-1 medications was $57 million. $57 million, that's a lot to folks like us, right? That's a lot of money. But guess what? In 2022, $5.7 billion, with a B, $5.7 billion is how much was spent on GLP-1s. Now we're really talking about Ozempic, Mounjaro, Rybelsus. Those are the ones that were approved for diabetes. Remember, we've got Wegovy out there now, kind of hanging in the background. That's just been approved by CMS, but that was only at the time only for obesity. And because of the law, Medicare is prohibited under the current law from covering drugs that are used just for weight loss. Okay. But Part D plans can cover GLPs if they're for other medically accepted indicators, such as diabetes, and of course now cardiovascular, which that is a very recent development. That just happened in March. That's been about a month. In fact, I believe it was March 8th. So if that's the case, then, and you're looking at such an increase now, what does it look like in the future? How much worse is it going to be? I mean, look at that jump from 57 million to 5.7 billion. Well, a recent study in the New England Journal of Medicine noted that if only 10% of Medicare beneficiaries with obesity were to use Wegovy, only 10% used Wegovy, that the annual cost of Medicare could increase 13.6 billion to 26.8 billion, somewhere in there, 13.6 to 28.6 increase from that. So we're talking about on top of that 5.7 already, but that would really depend on the take-up rates, how many people in that group are really doing it. This is definitely, we've talked about it over and over, this is definitely going to be a huge game changer across the board. We're talking about a huge increase, of course, for Medicare whenever you're looking at GLPs. And this is not even touching on what it's going to look like to your commercial health plans, right? It's not even looking at what it's going to look like to even ACA or individual plans. There's some big decisions that have to be made by companies whether to cover these. A number of companies, as we reported last week, a number of companies that do Medicare plans, Medicare Advantage plans and Part D plans have already elected to start covering Wegovy for those cardio indicators. So that is just going to increase. We're going to see more and more of that. We already see a number of companies that are covering Ozempic and Mounjaro and some of those other medications for diabetes on the ACA and the commercial side. But really on the commercial side, it's very interesting. Only about 25% of plans are actually covering GLP-1s right now. What's that going to look like in the future? I don't know, but I will tell you the more popular these things become and the more the demand comes for it, it's going to hurt their ability to attract and retain talent without covering them. So where is the balance? Where is the balance going to be that they can find a place where, yes, we can cover it without going broke? Now, something I didn't really have time to dig in too much, but I really thought that there was an interesting take on a study done by JAMA, and it showed. And once again, I haven't dove too far into this, and I'll certainly do that and then report back to you guys what I find. But the study showed that, and if there was a generic right now, if today there was a generic of Ozempic, that the medication with a profit still built in could be sold at about $5. So that's a $5 a month. That's a pretty big difference from the $1,000 a month, or right at $1,000 a month it's sold at right now. Of course, it cannot be given generic right now, but I will say this: it can be created. It can be a compound medication, and hearing the $5 number, that correlates fairly well with some of the folks that we have talked to that say that they could create this medication for a much lower cost. So, stay tuned on this. I think there's a lot that can be done in this realm for this medication, for the supply and demand. Even if there's a little tricky ways to kind of get around some of this stuff, I think that there's a lot there that can be done. So we'll certainly keep you up to date, and I'll look more into the story from JAMA, and I'll get back to you guys on that as well. All right. So last week we talked about the final rule that was put out that affected short-term plans. Big deal, right? This is a huge, huge deal on the short-term plans being cut down from up to 12 months to really you can only go 3 months with the possibility of going 1 more month after that. So a total of 4 months. You cannot reapply with that carrier. No reapplying with that carrier. You would actually have to go completely to a different carrier that's not even associated whatsoever. So they cannot even have, say, the same mother company up the stream there. If you wanted another short-term plan for another 3 or 4 months, then you would have to completely go somewhere else and reapply through the whole deal. Well, we expected some big things to happen on the final rule for Medicare Advantage as well. There was a proposal out there to actually remove FMOs completely from this equation. If that happened, we don't know what kind of chaos there would have been as far as agents and brokers looking for a way to contract, because the majority of folks actually contract through FMOs, GAs, MGAs, whatever letters you want to use on there. But there's all the different letters that we use in the thing. Now, there are obviously some agents that do contract directly, but as a general rule, for someone who's looking for leads, looking for other kind of support, you're going to go through an FMO. Well, the final rule did not make that. It did not pull the FMO away from there. There was a lot of lobbying done on behalf of FMOs to help the government understand what their place was. And at the end of the day, apparently they listened. So at the final rule, what really happened is the FMOs are still allowed to contract with carriers. They're increasing agent compensation. Hey, that's good. Like that part. And then they're clarified contract language. Now, this is the big part here. In essence, it's prohibiting contract terms between the MA organization. So once again, the company that's providing the Medicare Advantage plan. So it's prohibiting the contract terms between the agents, the brokers, and the FMOs, ensuring that in the contract, they do not influence the agents or brokers' ability to objectively assess and recommend the plan that best fits a beneficiary's healthcare needs. So, wow, they want us to do the best thing for the client. I think it's interesting how they get skewed. And yeah, there's some bad apples out there. And we do know from seeing those crazy commercials that they have every year with celebrities pandering to different plans. And then we also know that that people aren't supposed to be calling our clients, right? And it happens every single year. They get a number of calls, not from the current carrier that they're with, but from others that they should not be getting. Those are the bad actors. Those are the ones they should be going after. Instead, they kind of lump everyone together. And that's not fair to us, but I understand to a certain degree that there's no way they can differentiate. Remember, once again, these are not the people that are actually selling anything. This is the government, and they typically don't know how anything works to begin with, and they come up with an idea, and then they do what they do. Obviously, with that famous phrase, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." Run far away. But in this case, I think that they made some good decisions. I believe it's more of a wait and see. So they're going to look and see if these changes in the way that they're doing compensation, the way that the language will change in these contracts to prevent what they believe is an enticement for brokers and agents to sell one plan over another. They believe that the large MA carriers have so much money out there that they can, dangle that carrot in front of agents and FMOs as bonuses to get people to push their plans instead of what maybe a regional plan would be a better fit for a certain client. But I don't think most people do that anyway. I don't think most brokers go down that pathway, but I can't say that for sure. I know what I do, and I know what most of the folks that I've worked with do, and it's always going to take care of the client first. But I'm glad that they did not make that big change, because I think it would have caused a lot of chaos and a lot of confusion during this next open enrollment. All right. And finally today, the USPS annuitants will get a Medicare Part B special enrollment period. Now, what does that mean, and why does it really matter? Well, in the history of the post office, they have been on the Federal Employee Health Benefit Plan. Like most other federal employees, U.S. Postal Service is federal employee as well. And they're not required to take Medicare Part B. Typically, of course, you get Part A free. So most folks, when they turn 65, take that, but they do not take Part B because of one kind of flaw in the system. And that is that regardless of whether you take Part B or not, the cost of your plan does not change. So you hear what I'm saying? Doesn't matter if you have Part B or not. When you retire, the cost of your plan, your health plan, is not going to change. It doesn't go down. So even though there's less risk for that plan, there's less payout for that plan, and in fact, that plan becomes secondary once that person retires. In essence, it becomes a supplement. The price stays the same, of course, with the rates increasing every single year. So you have about a 50-50 way of going here. So, and when I say that, about 50% of folks that have retired take Part B, about 50% don't. But the part that don't take that Part B increase the cost overall of the health plans because they're using all of their services, except for Part A, through the health plan. And therefore, the government's having to pay a bigger amount of that because, like many times, they're self-funded, right? So their idea was to have, and it was part of the 2022 Postal Reform Act, is the Postal Service Health Benefits Program. So what this is allowing is new plans to be created, and a whole subset of those plans will work better with Medicare and be lower cost to encourage folks to take Part B. And in the future, everyone, when they retire from the post office, will be required to take Part B. That's going to happen 2025 and later. There's still some caveats to that. We won't get into that right now. But in most cases, anyone who retires after 2025 will be required to take Part B. Now, for those folks who have already retired, the annuitants, the folks that have already hit 65 and they're gone, that's who this special enrollment period is for. Okay, it's part of the transition to the Postal Service Health Benefits Program. And any eligible USPS annuitant who does not currently have Medicare Part B can sign up for it. Here's the key, without having to pay a penalty. The penalty is what, even if someone had changed their mind and wanted to, the penalty is what keeps people from doing this. And this special enrollment period began actually on April 1st and goes all the way through September 30th. Okay. Now, ordinarily, see, if you didn't join Medicare, for those of you who didn't know this, there is an initial enrollment period. And if you didn't join during there, you are subject to a late enrollment period that's 10% for every year you could have had Part B, but you didn't. So that means if you waited 10 years before you decided to enroll, you would have 100% penalty, in essence, doubling your premium for forever. Okay, so whatever the price of Part B was, it would stay twice as much for you for forever. So even in this case, if someone has been that 10 years, 15 years, or just 3, it doesn't matter, and they did not choose to take Part B, they get a do-over. So they're able to go ahead and enroll for Part B, and it will take effect on the 1st of January, 2025, same time that the new plans take effect, and they'll be able to get those new plans that work better with Medicare, and then they will not have to pay the penalty. So I think that's a really good deal for those folks. If you know someone who is a postal worker, then or retired, then make sure that you get this information to them. They should have had multiple reach outs, but we know that over time, folks can kind of fall between the cracks or get lost in the system. Maybe they didn't have a forwarding address or whatever, and it's possible that they got lost and didn't get the information, or they kept getting the mail and just didn't pay any attention to it. Right? How many times people do that? All right, that is what we've got for you this week. Do we have any questions or comments today? I don't see any coming through. We do appreciate you taking time out of your Monday. One other quick thing I want to make sure folks know, I'll be headed to Oklahoma City for the National FMMA meeting on Wednesday. Be there from Wednesday through Friday. For any of you that are going to be there, make sure you look me up. I'll look forward to seeing all of you there, and everyone have an extremely blessed week. We'll catch you next time on the Kickstart. We're out of here.